The rain-slicked petals of the rose arbor trembled as Ethan kissed his bride under a sky that refused to clear, but it was the boy in the corner, eyes like shattered glass, who made Damien's chest ache for the first time in a decade. He had come to this wedding in the misty hills outside Seattle not to celebrate love, but to endure it, his own heart long buried under layers of forgotten promises and empty mornings. Yet there, amid the laughter and clinking glasses, Riley's quiet sob escaped like a confession, pulling Damien across the lawn before he could talk himself out of it. Damien paused at the edge of the garden, the damp grass soaking through his loafers, watching the young man hunched on a weathered wooden bench beneath a canopy of dripping ferns. The wedding reception hummed in the background, strings of fairy lights flickering against the encroaching dusk, but this corner felt worlds away, a pocket of solitude carved out by the relentless Pacific Northwest drizzle. Riley, Ethan's new sister-in-law's cousin, barely 22 with a mop of sandy blonde curls plastered to his forehead, wiped at his face with the sleeve of his ill-fitting gray blazer. His tie hung loose, like a noose he'd half escaped, and his slim frame shook not just from the chill, but from something deeper, rawer. "Hey," Damien said softly, his voice cutting through the patter of rain like a lifeline tossed into choppy waters. He shrugged off his suit jacket, holding it out as an offering. "You look like you could use this more than me." Riley glanced up, his blue eyes rimmed red, lashes clumped with unshed tears. For a moment, Damien saw the flicker of surprise, then wariness, the kind that came from too many well-meaning strangers offering platitudes at the worst possible time. But Riley took the jacket anyway, draping it over his shoulders, the fabric swallowing his narrower build. "Thanks," he murmured, voice thick and edged with that Midwestern lilt, flat vowels from somewhere like Iowa, transplanted to the coast like so many others chasing reinvention. "I'm fine. Just allergies or something." Damien didn't buy it, but he didn't push. He sat down beside him, close enough to share warmth but not to crowd, the bench creaking under their combined weight. The air smelled of wet earth and distant barbecue smoke, the kind of scent that grounded you in Seattle's moody embrace, where joy and sorrow blurred like watercolor under rain. Allergies to happiness? Damien ventured, a half-smile tugging at his lips, the first genuine one he'd mustered since arriving at the old family vineyard that morning. Ethan had begged him to come, to be the best man in spirit if not in title, and Damien had relented because that's what brothers did, showed up, even when their own lives felt like half-written scripts. Riley let out a choked laugh, more exhale than mirth, and it cracked something in Damien's chest, a fissure he hadn't known was there. Something like that. Weddings, mostly. They make everything feel exposed. He fiddled with the cuff of the borrowed jacket, fingers long in artist's hands, nails bitten short. Damien noted the faint ink stains on his knuckles, the residue of charcoal sketches or late-night journals, whatever ghosts Riley chased in the quiet hours. Damien nodded, leaning back against the damp wood, his own shirt clinging uncomfortably now that the chill had seeped in. At 35, he was no stranger to exposure's sting. Love had been a brutal teacher once, back in his 20s in a cramped Brooklyn loft, where promises evaporated like steam from a cooling espresso. His ex, Marcus, with his easy charm and wandering eyes, had left Damien hollowed out, convinced that vulnerability was just a fancy word for self-sabotage. For years since, he'd built walls, freelance graphic design gigs from his Capitol Hill apartment, weekend hikes in the Cascades where solitude was the only reliable companion, and a string of one-night stands that never lingered past dawn. Love? That was for rom-coms and Ethan's fairy tale vows, not for men like him who knew better. But here was this kid, boy, really, though calling him that felt wrong, reductive, radiating a pain that mirrored Damien's own buried ache. "I get it," Damien said, his gaze drifting to the vineyard rows stretching into the fog-shrouded hills. "My brother's tying the knot, and all I can think is how I stopped believing in this shit years ago. Feels like watching someone else's dream play out." Riley turned to him then, really looked, and Damien felt the weight of it, those blue eyes searching for cracks in his facade. Then why come? If it's all bullshit. Because he's family. And sometimes, showing up is the closest we get to believing again. Damien's words hung there, heavier than intended, laced with the truth he'd avoided voicing even to himself. The reception music swelled, a cover of some indie folk tune about lost lovers, and couples swayed on the makeshift dance floor, their silhouettes blurred by the mist. Ethan caught his eye from across the lawn, raising a glass in a silent toast, his grin wide and unscarred by doubt. "Lucky bastard." Riley shifted, drawing his knees up under the jacket, making himself smaller. My ex dumped me 2 weeks ago. Said I was too needy. Like wanting someone to stay is a crime. His voice cracked on the last word, and he pressed his lips together, as if swallowing the rest. Damien's heart twisted. He knew that script by heart, the one where love's exit line was always about your flaws. Needy's not a crime, Damien replied, low and steady, like coaxing a skittish animal. It's human. The crime's pretending otherwise. He hesitated, then added, I'm Damien, by the way. The groom's older, wiser, but only marginally less fucked up brother. Riley, he offered, a ghost of a smile breaking through. Cousin of the bride. From Des Moines, but I've been crashing in Portland for the last year, trying to figure out everything. Portland made sense. The hipster haven for dreamers with bruised hearts. All craft beers and rainy afternoons spent in coffee shops scribbling poetry that no one read. They sat like that for what felt like hours, but was probably minutes, the rain easing to a fine mist that beaded on their skin like reluctant tears. Damien found himself talking, words spilling out unbidden, about his design firm, the way Seattle's gray skies matched his moods, the stray tabby cat he'd named after a forgotten lover because it scratched just right. Riley listened, chin propped on his knee, and in turn shared fragments. His art school dropout status, the barista job that paid for ramen and regret, the way his ex's cologne still lingered on his favorite hoodie like a bad habit. As the night deepened, the party thinning to stragglers nursing hangovers in waiting, Ethan appeared, clapping Damien on the shoulder with brotherly force. There you are? Thought you'd bolted for the ferry back to the city. His eyes flicked to Riley, curiosity sparking. Who's your date? Damien flushed, a rare heat creeping up his neck. Just keeping the benches from floating away. But Riley stood, handing back the jacket with a murmur of thanks, his fingers brushing Damien's in a touch that lingered a beat too long, electric in the damp air. See you around, Damien, Riley said, and there was a promise in it, fragile as new frost. Damien watched him weave through the crowd, disappearing into the vineyard's embrace, and for the first time in years, the emptiness in his chest felt less like a void and more like space, room for something wild and unforeseen to take root. The drive back to Seattle the next morning was a blur of windshield wipers and half-formed thoughts, the Olympic Mountains looming like silent judges under a clearing sky. Damien's apartment in Capitol Hill waited as it always did. Minimalist lines, exposed brick walls adorned with his own prints of foggy harbors and neon-lit alleys, a sanctuary of controlled chaos. He tossed his keys on the kitchen island, brewed coffee strong enough to scour regrets, and sank into his leather armchair by the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the bustling street below. Broadway thrummed with life, joggers in neon, dog walkers dodging puddles, the occasional drag queen striding past in full regalia, unapologetic under the weak sun. But his mind wasn't on the view. It snagged on Riley. The curve of his jaw when he laughed through tears, the way his voice softened around vowels like home, as if the word itself was a bruise. Damien hadn't felt this pull since Marcus, that intoxicating mix of protectiveness and desire that blurred boundaries until you couldn't tell where caution ended and recklessness began. He pulled out his phone, thumb hovering over Ethan's contact. Tell me more about the cousin, the one with the curls. Ethan's reply came quick, laced with emojis Damien ignored. Riley? Kid's a mess. Broke up with that asshole boyfriend right before the wedding. Why? You crushing on the drama? Just curious. Liar, Damien thought, but he set the phone down, forcing himself to open his laptop instead. Deadlines loomed, a rebrand for a local tech startup, sleek logos that screamed innovation while hiding the banality beneath. Work had always been his anchor, the steady rhythm that drowned out the what-ifs. But today, the pixels blurred, his cursor blinking like an accusation. By afternoon, he'd caved, searching Riley's name on Instagram. The profile was public, a mosaic of Portland grit, sketches of brooding figures in charcoal, shots of the Willamette River at dusk, a selfie from a dive bar with a pint in hand, and eyes shadowed by fatigue. No trace of the X, but plenty of the ache. Captions like chasing shadows in a city of lights, that read like pleas wrapped in poetry. Damien scrolled too far, too fast, heart rate spiking at a photo of Riley shirtless on a rooftop, tattoos snaking across his ribs like whispered secrets. A compass rose over his heart, pointing nowhere. He closed the app, guilt twisting in his gut. 35 to 22. What was he doing? Stalking a heartbroken kid half his age. It was predatory, the kind of story that ended in therapy sessions and restraining orders. Yet the memory of that bench, the shared silence pregnant with possibility, gnawed at him. Damien rose, pacing the hardwood floors worn smooth by years of solitary footsteps. His cat, Jasper, named for that ex who left with the rent money and half his vinyl collection, wound around his ankles, meowing for attention he couldn't spare. The buzzer rang at 6, jolting him from a half-eaten takeout falafel. Ethan, unannounced, bearing 6-packs of local IPA and a grin that said he knew too much. Figured you'd be brooding. Wedding afterglows hitting hard, huh? They cracked beers on the balcony, the city sprawling below like a circuit board of lives intersecting and diverging. Ethan, ever the golden boy with his architect's precision and unflappable optimism, leaned on the railing. Saw you with Riley last night. Kid's got that lost puppy vibe. Reminds me of you at 25. Damien snorted, taking a swig that burned going down. I'm not looking for a project, F. And he's not a kid. He's had his heart stomped on. Deserves better than my baggage. Ethan's eyes narrowed, the brotherly scrutiny that saw through bullshit. Baggage. You've been lugging that Marcus crap around like it's your security blanket. 10 years, man. When do you let it go? Easy for him to say, married now to Sarah, their future mapped out in blueprints and baby names. Damien stared into his bottle, the condensation tracing paths like tears. When it stops feeling like truth. They talked late into the night, Ethan regaling him with honeymoon plans. Maui, because Sarah craved sun after Seattle's eternal gray, while Damien nodded along, half listening. But when Ethan left, the apartment echoed emptier, the silence pressing in. He dreamed that night of rain-soaked gardens and blue eyes. Waking with a start to the alarm's insistent beep, his sheets twisted like accusations. Monday blurred into the week's rhythm. Client calls from his home office, a quick lunch at the neighborhood taqueria where the owner, Miguel, always slipped him extra guac with a wink. Damien threw himself into revisions, the glow of his dual monitors a false dawn. But Riley lingered in the margins, a doodle of curls on a napkin, a playlist queued with songs about second chances, the Nationals' brooding anthems, Hosier's soulful ache. It was Wednesday, mid-revision on a mood board, when his phone lit up with an unknown number. Hey, it's Riley. Ethan gave me your digits. Portland's too quiet. Coffee in Seattle this weekend? No pressure. Damien's thumb trembled over the reply. Saturday, 10 a.m. Elliott Bay Book Company. I'll bring the cure for quiet. He hit send before reason could intervene, pulse thundering like the fairy horns outside. What the hell was he doing? But as he leaned back, a tentative smile breaking free, the city outside seemed brighter, the gray laced with gold. Saturday dawned crisp, the kind of autumn bite that sharpened the air, leaves skittering across Pike Place like confetti from a forgotten parade. Damien arrived early, nursing a black coffee at a corner table in the bookstore's cafe, the scent of fresh pages and espresso grounding his nerves. He'd chosen his outfit with uncharacteristic care, slim-fit chinos, a Henley in soft gray that hugged his runner's build, sleeves rolled to show the faded tattoo on his forearm, a compass of his own, inked in a haze of post-breakup rebellion. Riley appeared at 9:58, wind-tousled and apologetic, a messenger bag slung over one shoulder bulging with sketch pads. He wore ripped jeans and a vintage band tee under a denim jacket patched with pins, queer icons, band logos, a tiny rainbow flag that fluttered like a banner. Traffic on I-5 was a nightmare, he said, sliding into the seat opposite, his smile shy but genuine, crinkling the corners of his eyes. Up close, sans wedding melancholy, he was striking, freckles dusting his nose like stars, lips full and bitten from habit. No worries. I just finished devouring the latest Ta-Nehisi Coates. Damien gestured to the stack of books on the table, a prop to steady his hands. They ordered, Riley a lavender latte, because Portland, and the conversation flowed like the sound at high tide, effortless and deep. Riley sketched idly on a napkin as he talked, lines forming a rough outline of the cafe's arched windows. Art school's a scam, he confessed, charcoal smudging his thumb. All that debt for professors telling you your shadows are too dark. But drawing, it's the only time my head quiets. Damien watched the pencil dance, mesmerized by the focus in Riley's gaze. Shadows make the light matter. I design logos for a living, strip everything down to essence. But sometimes I miss the mess, the raw strokes. Their knees brushed under the table, accidental at first, then lingering, a current humming between them. Riley's stories poured out. Childhood Christmases in Des Moines, coming out at 16 to parents who hugged too tight and asked too many questions. The ex, Tyler, who promised forever in a Boise motel, but ghosted when Riley dared to dream bigger. He said I was too much. Too emotional, too. Me. Damien's jaw tightened, old anger surfacing for a stranger. Tyler's an idiot. The world's full of them, thinking depth is a flaw. He reached across, covering Riley's hand with his own, thumb tracing the ink stain. The touch ignited, warm and insistent, and Riley's breath hitched, color blooming in his cheeks. By noon, they'd wandered out, books tucked under arms, into the market's chaos, fishmongers hawking salmon, flower stalls bursting with dahlias in defiant reds and golds. Riley bought a bouquet on impulse, tucking a bloom behind Damien's ear with a grin that dared the world to judge. They laughed over street musicians, shared bites of mini donuts dusted with cinnamon, the sugar lingering sweet on their lips. As the sun climbed, they found a bench by the water, the Ferris wheel turning lazy circles against the skyline. Riley leaned into Damien's side, head on his shoulder, the weight trusting and new. "This feels dangerous," he whispered, but his fingers intertwined with Damien's, holding fast. "Dangerous is living without it," Damien replied, pressing a kiss to his temple, tasting salt and possibility. The city pulsed around them, alive with secrets, and for the first time, Damien let himself believe he could be part of one worth keeping. Weeks blurred into a rhythm neither had planned, but both craved. Riley's visits to Seattle became weekends, crashing on Damien's couch that quickly evolved into his bed, their bodies mapping each other with the tentative hunger of rediscovery. Mornings started with coffee brewed on the balcony, Riley and Damien's oversized teas, sketching the skyline while Damien worked beside him, their feet tangled under the table. Evenings were takeout from the Ethiopian spot down the block, injera torn between fingers sticky with berbera, laughter echoing off brick walls as they debated everything from indie films. Riley's love for Wong Kar-wai's aching romances, to the ethics of ghosting, Damien, unforgivable, Riley, survival. Damien's world expanded, colors sharpening after years in grayscale. He introduced Riley to his running route along the Burke-Gilman Trail, their breaths sinking in the crisp air, leaves crunching underfoot like whispered encouragements. Jasper took to Riley immediately, curling in his lap during movie nights, purring through tearjerkers like moonlight that left them both raw and reaching. Sex was revelation, slow at first, exploratory hands learning scars and sighs, Damien's steady presence countering Riley's urgency, until it built to nights where the city lights blurred beyond the windows, their gasps the only soundtrack. But beneath the bloom, fissures formed. Riley's phone buzzed with text from Tyler. Apologies laced with manipulation, pleas for one more chance that Riley deleted but couldn't forget. Damien saw the shadows in his eyes during quiet moments, the way he'd pull away mid-embrace, murmuring excuses about needing space. "It's nothing," Riley insisted one rainy Thursday, as thunder rumbled over the sound. They were in bed, sheets tangled, Damien's fingers tracing the compass on his chest. Just old noise. Damien wanted to believe him, but doubt crept in like fog off the bay. His own past echoed, Marcus's late-night disappearances, the lies that unraveled trust thread by thread. He threw himself into work, pitching a bold campaign for a queer-owned winery, visuals of intertwined vines symbolizing resilience. Ethan noticed during their weekly beer at the pub, clapping his back too hard. "You're glowing, bro. Or is that the IPA?" "It's him," Damien admitted, clinking bottles. "Riley. But he's carrying ghosts, and I'm scared I'll join them." Ethan's face sobered, the architect's precision turning inward. "Love's not a blueprint, Damien. It's the demo phase, messy, full of surprises. Don't blueprint it to death." The advice stuck, but reality tested it. Mid-November, Riley arrived unannounced, duffel in hand, eyes hollow from a 12-hour drive. "Tyler showed up at my door. Said he misses me, that we were a mistake to end." His voice broke as he collapsed onto the couch, head in hands. Damien knelt before him, heart pounding with a fury he hadn't felt in years. "What did you say?" "I told him to leave. But it shook me. What if he's right? What if I'm just the interim, the rebound for someone steadier?" Damien's hands cupped Riley's face, thumbs wiping tears that fell hot and fast. "You're not interim. You're the whole damn story, Riley. And if he can't see that, he's blind." He kissed him then, fierce and claiming, pouring conviction into every press of lips, until Riley clung back, sobs turning to moans, their bodies a defiant anchor against the storm. But the seed of doubt had taken root. Days later, Damien's ex resurfaced. An email from Marcus, casual as a postcard. Heard you're thriving in Seattle. Coffee if I'm in town. For old times. Damien deleted it, but the words festered, a reminder of his own capacity for wreckage. He confided in Riley over dinner at a hole-in-the-wall ramen joint, steam curling between them like unspoken fears. My ex reached out. The one who taught me love's a con. Riley's chopsticks paused, jealousy flickering before softening to empathy. What did you do? Told him no, but it stirs shit up. Makes me wonder if I'm ready for this. For you. Riley's gaze held steady, blue depths unflinching. We're both wrecked, Damien. That's why it works. We see the cracks and build anyway. They toasted to that with sake, warm and biting, but the undercurrent lingered. Holiday lights twinkled early on the streets, storefronts decked in wreaths that mocked Damien's growing unease. Ethan's Christmas invite loomed, a family gathering at the vineyard, Sarah's kin included. Riley hesitated when asked. Tyler's family's there too, peripherally. Awkward city. Come anyway, Damien urged, pulling him close in the kitchen, flour-dusted from failed cookie attempts. We'll face it together. Riley agreed, but his smiles grew forced, sketches darker with thorny vines and fractured skies. Damien buried himself in holiday gigs, festive graphics for local boutiques, while Riley vanished into his bag for calls he swore were just friends. Trust frayed, thread by thread, until one eve, as snow dusted the city rare and fleeting, Damien came home to find Riley packing. Not like this, Riley said, zipper slicing the air. Tyler's back in Portland, clean, in therapy. Says he gets it now. And you're holding back, waiting for me to bolt. Damien's world tilted, the apartment's warmth turning claustrophobic. That's not, Riley, I'm all in. Scared shitless, yeah, but in. Scared isn't enough. Riley's eyes glistened, bag slung over shoulder. I need sure. The door clicked shut, echoing like finality, leaving Damien in the wreckage of half-wrapped gifts and a heart laid bare. He sank to the floor, Jasper nosing his hand, the snow outside melting into slush, promises undone. Winter gripped Seattle like a reluctant lover, the holidays passing in a haze of obligatory cheer and solitary toasts. Damien's apartment, once alive with Riley's laughter and scattered pencils, echoed with absence. He ran longer trails, the mud sucking at his shoes mirroring the pull of regret, each step a negotiation with the void. Work sustained him. The winery campaign launched to acclaim, bottles etched with his vines symbolizing not just growth, but survival. Clients praised the emotional depth, oblivious to the bleed of real pain into pixels. Ethan checked in daily, his text a lifeline. He's an idiot if he doesn't see. But Damien waved it off, burying hurt in routine. Morning yoga streamed from a lo-fi channel. Evenings at the corner bar, where bartender Lena poured whiskey neat and listened without pity. You gave him your heart, she said one night, polishing glasses to a shine. That's not failure. That's brave. Brave felt like bullshit when sleep evaded, dreams replaying the door's click, Riley's silhouette dissolving into snow. Damien drafted emails he never sent, apologies for silences, declarations of want, but deleted them, fearing they'd tip the scales toward desperation. Instead, he volunteered at a queer youth center in Capitol Hill, facilitating art workshops where teens like Riley once were sketched their truths. Bold lines, unapologetic colors. One boy, 17 with Riley's freckles, showed him a portrait of fractured mirrors. It's me, after Dad kicked me out, the kid said. Damien's throat tightened, seeing echoes. You're more than the breaks, he replied, voice steady for the first time in weeks. The words landed for both of them, a mirror held up to his own shards. News of Riley trickled in via Ethan, who heard from Sarah. He's back with Tyler. Portland's got them in counseling. Says it's different this time. Each update was a gut punch, Damien nodding through family dinners at the vineyard, the Christmas tree's lights mocking his solitude. Sarah hugged him tight, whispering, he'll wake up. Hearts like yours don't stay buried. New Year's Eve found him on a rooftop party in Belltown, fireworks blooming over the bay like false hopes. He kissed a stranger under the bursts, tall, bearded, with a laugh like thunder, but it tasted hollow, a placeholder for blue eyes and bitten nails. Midnight struck, resolutions unspoken, let go or fight. January thawed slowly, rain returning with vengeance, washing streets clean of salt and sin. Damien's designs turned inward, a personal series of digital collages, compasses pointing to horizons, vines reclaiming ruins. He posted one anonymously on a queer art forum. Caption: "What grows in the wreckage?" The response came private. "You, maybe, if you let it." R. Damien's breath caught, fingers flying. Coffee? Neutral ground. No expectations. Elliott Bay. Same time. Tomorrow. The bookstore hummed with post-holiday browsers, scents of chai and ink thick in the air. Riley waited at their table, curls tamed but eyes stormy, a sketchpad open to a half-finished portrait, Damien's face, rendered in soft grays and golds. "I fucked up," he said without preamble, voice raw. Tyler was safe, familiar, but it was a cage, not a home. Damien sat, heart hammering. "And me? You were terror, the kind that remakes you." Riley pushed the pad across. "I drew this the night I left. Couldn't stop seeing you." The lines captured him unflinchingly, laugh lines deepened by loss, eyes holding a quiet fire. Damien traced the paper, emotion swelling. "I let you go too easy. Should have chased." "Chasing now." Riley's smile trembled, hopeful. "Every damn day since." Damien's hand found his, the touch reigniting embers. They talked for hours, Tyler's relapse into old patterns, the therapy sessions that exposed Damien's walls as fear, not strength. Laughter wove through tears, forgiveness a bridge rebuilt plank by plank. Outside, the market bustled, but they lingered, plotting a future tentative as spring. Riley stayed that night, bodies reconnecting with deliberate tenderness, whispers mapping new promises. Dawn broke clear, rare sun gilding the sheets, and Damien woke to Riley's sketch of them. Intertwined, compasses aligned. Spring unfurled in Seattle's tentative glory, cherry blossoms dusting the U district like pink confetti, the city shaking off winter's grip. Damien and Riley's rhythm steadied, a dance learned through stumbles, shared leases negotiated over late-night foe, weekends in the San Juans where kayaks cut through glassy inlets, arguments over dishes that ended in make-up sex against the kitchen counter. Damien's trust rebuilt slowly, brick by brick, while Riley's sketches lightened, vines blooming, skies unbroken. But shadows lingered, uninvited. Marcus appeared one April afternoon, unannounced at Damien's studio door during a client pickup. Taller than memory, with silver threading his temples and a smile that once disarmed. "Heard through the grapevine you're off the market. Congrats." Damien's spine stiffened, the air thickening. "What do you want, Marcus? Just closure. Or curiosity? Saw your winery work. Beautiful. Like you always were." His eyes lingered, appraising, and Damien felt the old pull, the siren call of what-ifs. He shut it down, voice even. "I'm good. Taken. Go find your own vintage." The door closed firm, but the encounter rattled, doubt whispering. History repeats. That night, over dinner at a waterfront bistro, clams steaming, waves lapping pilings, Damien confessed. Riley listened, Fort paused, jealousy sharpening his gaze. "He wants you back." "No. And even if it's you." Damien squeezed his hand, the city's lights reflecting in Riley's eyes like stars reclaimed. But the seed sprouted, Tyler texting Riley sporadically. "Miss our talks. You're stronger now." Riley blocked him, but the breach widened. May brought Ethan's housewarming, a barbecue in their new Queen and Victorian, backyard strung with lights and laughter. Riley fit seamlessly, charming Sarah with art tips, trading barbs with Ethan over grilled beauties. Damien watched from the porch, beer in hand, pride swelling. This, a life woven from fragile threads. Then Tyler crashed it, uninvited, arriving with a bottle of Pinot and a grin too wide. "Heard about the party. Riley and I go way back." The air shifted, conversations faltering as eyes darted. Riley's face paled, but he stood firm. "Not tonight. Not ever." Tyler's charm cracked, words turning sharp. "Playing house with the older guy? You'll tire of that stability shit." Damien stepped forward, arm around Riley's waist. "Leave. Now." His voice was steel, honed by years of swallowed rage. Tyler sneered but backed off, tail between legs, the gates slamming like punctuation. The party recovered, but the damage festered. That night, in bed, Riley curled into Damien, trembling. "He makes me feel small again. Like I'm borrowing someone else's happy." "You're not borrowing. This is ours." Damien held him through the sobs, but dawn brought distance. Riley sketching alone at the kitchen table, lines jagged. June's heat wave baked the city, air conditioners humming like anxious hearts. Damien pitched a bold project, a graphic novel collab with Riley, their stories intertwined, compasses and vines charting queer odysseys. Excitement sparked, late nights brainstorming over gelato, but Tyler's shadow loomed. An anonymous email hit Riley's inbox. Photos of them from months back. Caption, "Remember who you were?" Panic set in. Riley withdrew, canceling a trail hike. Voice clipped on calls. Need space to think. Damien's calls went to voicemail. Texts unread, the apartment echoing anew with absence. He confronted it head-on, driving to Portland unannounced, the I-5 a ribbon of resolve. Riley's studio apartment above a tattoo shop reeked of turpentine and takeout, canvases leaning like accusations. "Talk to me," Damien pleaded, door ajar to the street's hum. Riley's eyes were red-rimmed, a half-packed box at his feet. "Tyler's poison, but you're the risk I can't afford. What if I break you like he broke me?" "You won't. We break together, heal together." Damien pulled him close, the kiss desperate, tasting salt and fear. Riley resisted, then yielded, bodies crashing to the floor in a tangle of need and negation. But morning brought truth. Tyler's harassment escalated, restraining order papers drafted but undelivered. Damien urged action, but Riley hesitated, guilt chaining him. "He was my first everything." The climax shattered on a humid July night, Tyler cornering Riley outside a gallery opening. Damien's invite, a queer artist showcase. Words escalated to shoves, bystanders filming as Damien arrived, pulling Tyler off with a fury that left bruises on both. Police came, statements taken in the flashing lights, Tyler arrested for violation. In the aftermath, hospital waiting room stark under fluorescence, Riley broke. "I can't do this. The drama, the fear, it's me, attracting chaos." Damien's heart fractured, holding Riley's hand swollen from the scuffle. "It's not you. It's him. And us. We're the quiet after." But Riley pulled away, discharged into the night. "I need to fix me alone." The cab's taillights faded, leaving Damien on the curb, city sirens wailing his grief. Summer waned in a fever of loss. Damien hollowed, work a mechanical blur. He finished the novel alone, dedicating it silently to blue-eyed ghosts. Therapy sessions unpacked Marcus's echo in Tyler's rage, his own walls as complicity. Ethan dragged him hiking. The Cascades Peaks a sermon in endurance. Summits come after valleys. Fall returned, leaves turning like pages. Riley's silence stretched months until a package arrived. The sketchpad, filled with their story. Vines reclaiming compasses, horizons met. A note. "I fixed the brakes. Portland's too small. Can we try again?" Damien drove south, heart open, the road unspooling like forgiveness. Riley waited on that rooftop, shirtless under harvest moon, tattoos glowing. "I love you," he said, simple as breath. "And I you." Damien pulled him close, the city below a testament. Love, not despite the wreckage, but through it. Human, flawed, eternal.